Барууны улс орнууд Кубыг хүний эрхийг зөрчдөг гэж нэлээд шүүмжилдэг. Энэ бол барууны хэвлэлүүд ч гэсэн шүүмжилдэг. Та энэ талаар юу гэж байна? Ер нь хүний эрх гэдгийг Кубын ард түмэн юу гэж ойлгодог вэ?
Let me tell you, this is a very good question. You know, the main human right violation right now of the Cuban people is the United States blockade against Cuba.
Yes, trade blockade.
Not only trade, it's a financial, it's commercial, it's economic. It's the way that was planning from the very beginning of the revolution in 1960 to struggle the revolution and to make people uncomfortable, and then and defeated the revolution by that means. And as a resolution of United States and the Convention of Geneva, that blockade is considered as a genocide against the Cuban people. Now, more than 25 times, whole United Nations are voting against that blockade unanimously. In United Nations every year. And in that regard, I, as ambassador here in Mongolia, I would like to thank to the Mongolian government, to the Mongolian people for supporting Cuba on that struggle. We have Cuban people living with the right to be educated for free.
Yeah.
The whole life. I mean, doesn't matter in Cuba if you were born poor or rich or whatever, you have the right to go to school. And you have to right to be in the university paying $0. That's your right in Cuba. You have the right in Cuba to go to the hospitals and don't pay anything. Doesn't matter what they're doing to you. And it's a basic human rights. You have the right to practice any sport in Cuba without paying anything, and be a professional in any sport without paying anything. You have the right to enjoy the culture things and the music and the arts and everything without paying anything in Cuba. You have the right to enjoy your life in Cuba without paying anything. But let me tell you, my friend, this is a bad example for the rest of the world. Because the model that we choose, it have been attacked and it has been schematized in the medias to try to demonize Cuban way. And let me tell you that if there is any person in the world who lives with more rights, it's a Cuban. Because they have, it's the rights in Cuba when you're born that they vaccinate you for 13 different type of illness. It's a right as a child. It's a right in Cuba right now. Let me tell you, it's interesting because that's the human right that we are talking about. What is it's a right in Cuba to be happiness. Recently, in the World Bank report, just 1 week ago, Cuba was declared as the best educational system in Latin America.
Yeah.
So what human right we talking about? So we're talking about that human rights. That is not journalists in Cuba dead.
Yeah.
While in those countries who accuse Cuba are many journalists dead. No one single journalist in Cuba is dead. We don't have political prisoners. We have mercenaries, people who would be paid by the United States. And then we have to defend ourselves. So it's the way that you present the things. It's our right to defend our revolution. It's the right to our people to defend the value of many people who will die in Cuba struggling against those things. And right now, the kids and the population in Cuba enjoy those human rights.
Okay. Кубус ягаад Америк нэгдсэн улсад харилцаагаа сайжруулсан бэ? Ялангуяа ерөнхийлөгчсөн Барак Обама Кубад айлчилсан, Кубын ард иргэд, Кубын олон нийт энэ айлчлалын талаар тухайн үед ямар сэтгэлдэлтэй байсан бэ?
We never broke relation with United States. They are the one who in 1962 closed the embassy in Havana, and they broke diplomatic relation with Cuba. It wasn't until 1980s when Jimmy Carter President of the United States initiated those process to close the both countries, and it was a moment when they started again to working in Havana as not as an embassy but as a intersection in Havana. But the interesting thing is that we never broke relation with the United States people. More than 2 million people, more than 1 million Cubans and 2 million Cuban and descended from them living in United States, in the south of Florida.
Okay.
Yes. So we never, and you know what? United States was the territory when our people was preparing the wars against the Spaniards. So we never broke relation with the people from the United States. We are, I mean, as a state, we work relation with the governments of the United States. But the people of the United States is always in the heart of the Cuban. So you will not find anyone in the streets of Cuba who hate the United States. No, we don't hate that. We don't hate that because it's not a place for hate in our Cuban hearts. You know what? And what happened recently is that the will of this President of the United States, or Barack Obama, to start on a process of getting close to both countries, and that's why we open embassies again, and we signed more than 33 agreements between the institutions in Cuba and institutions in the United States regarding with many things, immigration, natural, environmental issues, combat the drug, combat traffic, human. So right now it's more than 33 legal instruments signed by both countries in less than 3 years, regarding with the ways that we can get closest both countries with respect, with attending, not interfering the sovereignty of each country, and getting very clear that we have to talk in the same position, that we are not going to admit never talking in other way than a way. So it's in our way, it was in our thinking, and as Raul Castro says many times, and when he was meeting with the Obama president, is the only way, and is what we should do if we wanted to get closer both countries together. Cuba, imagine we have very good relation in terms of Cubans that living in the United States with the Cuban. Those people are I mean, mostly of them, more than 70% of them are sick of this situation, and they are all, I mean, mostly of them are also one that this nonsense policy of blockade to Cuba ended, need to be ended, because for developing a country, we need to end that policy, and they have been asking to the Congress of the United States to end that policy, and it was the same what Obama said when he was in Cuba. He was asking to the Congress to end that policy.
Америк нэгдсэн улсын одоогийн шин засаг захиргаа ерөнхийлөгч Дональд Трампын талаар та юу гэж бодож байна? Ялангуяа энэ хоёр улсын харилцааг сайжруулсан өмнөх алхмын талаар Дональд Трамп ямар байр суурьтай байна?
Unfortunately, Donald Trump is getting back those steps. He's listening more to the guys who is in Florida, around the backtrack of this new road. So we will see what happens. We still are committed, and Cuba as a sovereign country will do whatever we have to do to follow our principle, and we'll see what happens. But the reality is that from the very beginning, Donald Trump was this month, many of those steps, even though the whole businessmen in the United States are in favor of continuing to invest in and to find a way to be closest to the businessmen in Cuba, and to be close to the real closing with the Cuban people.
Миний өмсчихсэн байгаа цагаан цамцыг guayabera гэдэг юм байна. Манай Монгол үндэстний бол дээл гэж хэлж болно. За Куб маань өөрөө маш халуун уур амьсгалтай юм улс учраас ийм ширсэн нэмэх материалтай энэ цамцыг өмсдөг. Их өрмөц юм байна. Дөрвөн халаастай. Тэр нэг юм судалтай юм оруулахтай юм ихтэй. Энэ guayabera бол Кубын үндэсний хувцс. Ерөөсөө баг одоо костюм шиг л аль биесний юм дээр хүртлийн цамцаа өмсдөг гэж ярьж байна.
This is the most famous brand of cigars in Cuba, and it was born in 1967.
67.
Why? Part of the Cuban commander of the revolution was one lady. His name was Celia Sanchez. Celia Sanchez was a commander of the revolution with Che Guevara, with Fidel. She struggled in the mountains with Fidel. So at the beginning of the revolution, a CIA in the United States intended more than 600 times to kill Fidel. One of the ways to kill Fidel was through the cigars.
Oh.
Yes. So they wanted to poison the cigar and then kill Fidel. So between that and the 1967, Fidel had a lot of meetings. Fidel traveled all over the world. He was in the United States, in the United Nations, in many places. So the people started to asking him, Fidel, what brand of this cigar that you are smoking? And at that time, there was no brand for the cigars Fidel. So Celia Sanchez asked Fidel, we have to put a name of these cigars. And so they decided to put Cohiba. Cohiba is the native word for the acting of smoke cigar. Our Aboriginal people call to act of smoke Cohiba.
Cohiba.
Yes, and that's how the brand began in 1967. And from that moment until now, this brand it's become the most famous one in the world. Because of the quality of the leaf and because of the quality of the tobacco that they choose to do this brand.
Yeah. Тэгээд Кубын засгийн газар иргэдээ хувийн бизнес эрхлийг зөвшөөрдөг. Ялангуяа Улаанбаатар хотод бол Кубын үндэсний хоолой үйлчилдэг зоогийн газар байна.
Yes, from 2011 we are updating our system, our economic system in Cuba, and private sectors are growing in Cuba very fast. Right now, more than 500,000 people working in the private sector in Cuba, because in our strategy of the development in the country, all the forces, working forces in Cuba should be complementary and should be help of the country to get development.
Ялангуяа одоо нийгмийн иргэдийн эрүүл мэндтэй холбоотой том салбар бол ийм үйлдэл байдаг. Куб бол анагаах ухааны чиглэл нэлээд алдартай. Энэ чиглэлээр элчин сайдын ямар зүйлстэй ямар дэмжлэг үзүүлж байна.
Yes, and this is an area and this is an issue that was busted when the president of Mongolia, former president of Mongolia, was visiting Cuba in 2016, September 2016. So that was the beginning of our boosting on the specifically in the pharmaceutical industry, because he was visiting our biotechnology industry in Cuba, and he was aware how big and how developed we have that industry and how many diseases we cure already in Cuba, especially those diseases that right now are affecting very much to Mongolia, as an hepatitis B virus and diabetes.
Yes.
And from that moment, the Elber Dorsch was invited scientists from Cuba to visit Mongolia. March last year, they visit Mongolia, and we signed an agreement of understanding. I mean, agreement with the Minister of Health. So right now we are trying to register some of those products. We are in the process to register some of those products to implement in the healthcare system here in Mongolia with the Mongolian specialists to try to avoid, for example, in the case of diabetes, the amputation of the feet of the people that suffering from ulcers in the they call that ulcer for diabetes foot ulcer. So the products from Cuba are very good, and we are in the process to bring those products here to Mongolia to improve that. From our basic needs of the pharmaceutical products in Cuba, we are producing 80% of them. So that means that we almost produce all of the medicine that we needed as a country. As you remember, and as you know, Cuba index, Cuban statistics on healthcare are in the top 20 countries in the world.
Top 20 countries.
Yes, yes, we are very good, accomplish those statistics in terms of rate mortality, child mortality, healthcare of the elders people, and eliminating many diseases that are still killing many people around the world, and we already eliminate that from our Cuban population. Let me tell you something that you will see, and it's very interesting. I mean, we have very good research on the cancers vaccines. And we are right now in the process to finish 13 different of vaccines against different type of cancers. The last year we started to put it to the old men's the vaccine against prostate cancer for the men's. And this year in January we started to put to our population for free vaccine against the lung cancer. So we have this goal in Cuba. We are going to eliminate cancer by 2015, and we're working hard on that.
2015?
Yes.
50?
50.
50,
50.
2050.
Yes.
Mid-century.
Yeah, in the mid of the century, we are going to declare Cuba free of cancer. And that's why we are working very hard on that. And our vaccine against lung cancer, it recently was registered by the United States DFA, and the opinion on that vaccine is that it's one of the best in the world. It's a unique because it's made by a biotechnology process, which is not chemistry, and it's very good. Also, we have developed very good products, like, for example, hepatitis B vaccine.
Yes.
You know, we don't have hepatitis in Cuba. We eliminate that.
Монгол улсын гадаад харилцааны яам Eagle News телевиз хамтран үзүүлж байна.
Eagle News-ийн нэвтрүүлгийн багийг хүлээн авч зохион байгуулалтаар хангаж өгсөн элчин сайд Раул Делгадо Консепсион танд маш их баярлалаа. Тэгээд элчин сайдтай танилцъя нэвтрүүлгийн маань анхны төвөө өндөрлөж байна.
Монгол улсын гадаад харилцааны яам Eagle News телевиз хамтран үзүүлж байна.
Элчин сайдтай ярилцсан нэвтрүүлгийн маань анхны дугаар үзэгч та бүхэнд хүрэхэд бэлэн боллоо. Миний анхны зочин бол Монгол улс дахь бүгд найрамдах Куба улсын элчин сайд Раул Делгадо Консепсион ирсэн байна.
Элчин сайд Раул Делгадо Консепсион 1972 оны 10 дугаар сарын 6-нд Хавана хотод төрсөн. Эхнэр 2 хүүхдийн хамт амьдардаг. Испани, Англи, Орос хэлтэй. 1996 онд Хосе Антонио Ичварагийн нэрэмжит Политехникийн их сургуулийг автоматын инженер мэргэжлэр төгсжээ. 1999 онд эдийн засгийн хамтын ажиллагаа, гадаадын хөрөнгө оруулалтын чиглэлээр магистрийн зэрэг хамгаалсан. 1996 онд Кубын шуудан холбооны газрын мэргэжилтнээр ажлын замналаа эхлүүлжээ. 2005-аас 2006 онд Иран улс дахь Кубын элчин сайдын яамны 2 дугаар нарийн бичгийн дарга. 2009-оос 2013 онд Канадын Торонто хот дахь Кубын ерөнхий консулын газрын консул. 2016 оноос Монгол улс дахь бүгд найрамдах Куба улсын элчин сайдаар ажиллаж байна.
Танд өдрийн мэнд хүргэе.
Good afternoon.
Та ярилцлагын эхэнд Монгол улс Кубын дипломат харилцааны түүхийн талаар манай үзэгчдээс товчхон хэлэхгүй юу?
First of all, let me appreciate and thankful for the Eagle TV for this opportunity to talk a little bit about Cuba and Mongolia through your station to the audience of the Eagle TV. Thank you very much to your station and to your TV people for being here at the embassy and for doing this interview. We established relation with Mongolia in the early of the 60s, exactly December the 7th in 1960. Was the moment when the Cuba and Mongolian signed a diplomatic relation. So the embassy was opened in 1970, in May, around May 1970, after the visit of the Raul Castro, our president right now, at that time was a Minister of Defense in Cuba.
Куб Монгол улсууд бол одоо хуучин тогтолцооны үед коммунист дэвсэлд багтдаг байсан. Тэр үеийн хоёр улсын харилцаа ямар байсан тухай та хэлж өгөөч.
Yes, it was, I mean, at that time it was good. I mean, the relation economically and politically at that time was very good. And we have to say that the trade and the commercial trade between the two countries was a little bit quite big. We've been change and trade sugar, fabric, leather, and many other things from that time.
Куб улсад ялангуяа боловсролын салбар бол нэлээд нэр хүндтэй. Ялангуяа эрүүл мэндийн салбарыг бол монголчууд их ярьдаг. Хэдэн монгол хүн Куб улсад суралцсан байна өнгөрсөн хугацаанд?
I mean, right now we have 16 students from Mongolia. They are studying medicine and other careers in Cuba. Yeah. But from the beginning of this cooperation established between the two countries, more than 150 people are graduated from Cuban universities. Yes.
За 1990 оноос 95 хүртэл бол ер нь Куба улсад оюутан солилцооны хөтөлбөр төр цагаар зогссон байж байгаа. 95 онд одоо Монголын анхны оюутан болж ганцаар очиж суралцж байлаа.
Миний сурцсан сургууль бол олон улсын биеийн тамирын дэд сургууль байсан. Тэгээд энэхүү сургуульд дэлхийн 80 гаруй орны 1500-аад оюутнууд сурч төгссөн тийм сургууль байдаг.
Куба улсын анхаах ухааны их сургуулийн хүний хэмжээ ангийг төгссөн. Тэгэхээр энэ хүний хэмжээ ангид одоо суралцахад бол ер нь хэлний бэлтгэлтэйг нийлээ 7 жил. Дараа нь яг тэндээ үргэлжлүүлээд одоо дахиад 5 жилээр одоо энэ нөхөн сэргээх гоо сайхны мэс заслал гэдэг энэ чиглэлийн нарийн мэргэжлийн хэмжээр 5 жил суралцаад хамгаалаад ирсэн.
This is a program that we started in the early 1960, bringing people from the countries that were our friends and try to help them on the build capacities for these human resources those countries needed. Actually, right now are more than 19,000 students from all over the world studied in Cuba for more than 123 countries.
Wow, okay.
19,000 kids studied in Cuba for free. Mostly of them study medicine and career related with the with the health sectors. It's the first reason and the main reason of that. It's because of the government will. What that means that we dedicated from our national budget 51% to the education and the health sector. So the last year, the budget of the Cuban state dedicated 28% to the education and 23% of the budget to the healthcare sector. And that's why our universities and our programs and our schools are so good. But mainly because of the will of the government and the people of Cuba to improve that.
Yeah.
We have right now cooperation with more than 90 countries around the world. I think 97 if I'm not wrong. And there are more than 40,000 people working abroad, Cubans, mainly from the health care sector. But from that, more than 22,000 doctors. So we can do that, dear friend, because we have been graduated from the 1959 until now, more than 76,000 doctors in our schools. So if you want a good comparison, it's the same amount of doctors, 76,000 of the whole continent of Africa. So Cuba only have the same amount of doctors graduated, with one very main, let's say, condition: for free and to taking care of those people that most need it. Not working in the luxurious hospitals of those countries. No. In the very, very far away places from the capitals, in the very, very poor areas of those countries. And I'm talking about El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, whole Latin American. We have brigades, medical brigades in those countries. Many countries of Africa as well, and even here in the region, we also send medical brigades in the occurrence of the earthquakes or emergency. When the earthquake in Pakistan, we sent 32 hospitals to Pakistan and many doctors there to help those people during almost 1 year. Our people was working there for free and saving life there in Pakistan. But we did the same in Indonesia with the tsunami. We did the same in Peru in the earthquake. We did the same right now in Mexico.
1991 онд зөвлөлт холбоот ус задран улс төрийн газрын зүрх өөрчлөгдсөн. 91 оноос хойш Куб Монгол улсын харилцаанд ямар нэгэн өөрчлөлт орсон уу? Яаж өөрчлөгдсөн бэ гэдгийг бас манай үзэгчид сонирхож иж магадгүй.
It's very good question. We don't change attitude because our compromise and our commitment is with the Mongolian people. We respect and we have very a high standard our respect for the decision of the any country, sovereignty of any country to take the system that they want. So our friendship and our let's say relation, it's with the people of Mongolia. So we didn't change one bit from that when Mongolia decided to take another economic system or whatever. And that's why we are keeping our program, scholarship program with Mongolia. That's why we're keeping a very good relation on the political field. And that's why we are continuing to be in the very high standards of the communication between the two governments and without any problem.
Очсон хүн болгон ерөөсөө эхний жилдээ спайлны бэлтгэл хийдэг. Яг орчиндөө ороод сурахад бол тийм хэцүү хэл биш. Кубад өөрөөсөө маш тийм илгэмсэг хүмүүс байдаг учраас айгуу ярихад хайрцахад амар байдаг. Монголын талаар ер нь мэддэг хүн байхгүй. Бүр хааны хүмүүс Чингис хаан, хааны хүмүүс Сэдэн Балагч хэлдэг.
We are very far. Not too many.
Yes.
One of my goals is to try to send more Mongolians to Cuba. No, it's around 300 something per year. I mean, it's not more than that. That's what our accounts of Mongolian visiting to Cuba and I mean, as a tourist or something like that. Every year, around 300 something people going to Cuba from Mongolia. But it's a good moment to try to increase that and to try to show the Mongolians our reality and our country to the people that are able to go there to Latin America. So if they can pass by Cuba, it's going to be very good.
Yeah.
Улсын сургуулийн оюутнууд гэдэг маань ер нь бол яг нэг тийм Фидель Кастрогийн тэр социализмыг одоо түгээн дэлгэрүүлэх үзэлд ор байхлаараа бүгд бие биентэйгээ тийм яг найрсаг гэр бүлийн харилцаатай байсан нь одоо ингээд миний хувь хүний хөгжилд ч гэсэн яг тэр намайг хүн болгосон хугацаанд тэр 6 жил байсан л гэж би хардیں۔ Бага юмаа бусдад хуваах нь одоо хайрлахын нэр юмаа гэдэг тийм ойлголтыг л тэндээс авч ирсэн л дээ.
Та Монголд ирээд хэр удаж байна?
Let's say that I've been here 2 winters.
2 winters.
That means that we arrived on November 2016. I present credentials to the president on December 9, 2016. So officially 1 year, something like that. And it's not long time, around 1 year, but it's I mean it's have been time to me very, very nice to know many places here in Mongolia and to see real nomadic life of the Mongolian people. And it's quite interesting and beautiful places and beautiful landscape that you have it.
Yeah.
You don't have to go anywhere to see the beauty of the nature if you are here in Mongolia. It's quite beautiful place that I'm very proud to visit, especially those places that are very far from the Ulaanbaatar.
Yes.
And they are really show you the face of the heritage of the Mongolian people and the customs. I mean, very, very old one and very, very good people in terms of very kind and with the family, the concept of the family and everything.
Yeah.
For me, I have been very, very interested in that. Really.
Okay. Кубын элчин сайдын яам дотор байна. Элчин сайдын яамны барилгын дотоод хамын засал чимэглэлийг дандаа уран зургаар хийсэн байна. Энэ их сонирхолтой түүхтэй юм. Яг тэгвэл 1959-өөс 1970-аад оны хооронд 20 гаруй жилийн хугацаанд уран бүтээлээ төөрүүлж байсан алдартай зураачдын бүтээлүүдийг ханаар чимэглэсэн. Эдгээр зургууд бол яг их хуваар явж байгаа. Ерөөсөө яг л зураад гарын үсгээ булан дээр нь зураад өгсөн. Эдгээр алдартай зурагч хэдийгээр бүгд одоо хорвоогоо сальж нас нөхцсөн ч гэсэн эдгээр алдартай уран зураачдын бүтээлийг эдүгэ Хаваноотын үндэсний музей, Америкийн Нью-Йорк, Лондон, Парис гээд алдартай том хотуудын урлагийн музейнүүдэд эдгээр зураачдын бүтээлүүд тавигдсан байдаг юм. За энэ бол яг их хуваараа байгаа юм зургууд даа гэж элчин сайд маань тайлбарж байна.
Famous one painter. This is a Sebando Cabrera Moreno, and this is very symbolic painting. Why?
Yeah.
He was on the painting very special. He only used blue, gray, dark colors.
Color. Oh.
Yeah, you would not see any red or something like that. So, but you see the atmosphere who he's creating in his paintings. It's very beautiful. These represent our struggles. Our Cuban struggle against the Spaniards is in a battle between the Cuban and the Spaniards, and how fear was and how brave were the Cuban at that time without any resources to struggle with the Spaniards, that they have rifles and all the guns. I mean, at that time that war started in 1868. October the 10th, 1868,
and it represents our people fighting for her freedom and independence of Cuba at that time. It's a very symbolic painting, and also the techniques of Servando Cabrera are beautiful. I was saying we are very lucky here at the embassy. When Raul was here in 1917, he was accompanied by a huge delegation of Cubans. But one of the guys who was accompanying Raul at that time was Nicolás Guillén. Yeah. He was commanded by Raul to be a president of the Cuban-Mongolian Friendship Association. But that, Nicolás Guillén, not also was that, he was our national poetry, and he was at that time also the president of the Union of the Artists and Writers in Cuba. So one of the things that he did, and I think one of the most wonderful, was to command all and to ask all the painters in Cuba at that time to painting for the embassies around the world, Cuban embassies around the world. We are a poor country. We don't have so much resources to accomplish all the embassies. So one of the big ideas was to bring this Cuban art to the embassies, and to surround the environment of the embassies with the Cuban really through art. Fortunately, we have very old paintings here at the embassy, which really prove and show you our landscape, our cities, and our national culture too. So this is one of our paintings. This is a painting from Luis Felipe, one of our naturalists. He was painting the nature in Cuba, and he's one of the most talented painters that we had at that time. He passed away, but his work is here, and it shows our landscape are like here in Mongolia, beautiful too. I saw many beautiful paintings about the landscape in Mongolia. You have beautiful. This one is show you our west side of the country with the mountains and with the national tree, Palma Real, and also this tree which is an framboyan. This tree was brought by the Spaniards when they colonized Cuba during 3 centuries. And now it's very popular. I mean, he was spread all over the island, and it's in the autumn he gives you this very spectacular color, orange and red. Very nice, very nice. Okay.
Монгол улсын гадаад харилцааны яам Eagle News телевиз хамтран үзүүлж байна.
Нэвтрүүлгийн баг маань Хабанос гэж алдартай Кубын хамгийн алдартай бүтээгдэхүүн болох сигар буюу одоо навчин тамхиг одоо аль бисний зөвшөөрөлтөд борлуулдаг дэлгүүрт ирсэн байна. Элчин сайдтайгаа энэ сигар тамхины талаар бол ярилцсан. Мэдээж Кубын түүх ялангуяа энэ дэлгүүрийн хан дээр үзэж та бүхэн анзаарах юм бол дэлхийд алдартай түүхэн хүмүүс навчин тамхи татаж байгаа дүр зургийг халж болно. Жишээ нь энэ хан дээр бол Их Британий ерөнхий сайд Winston Churchill байна. Кубыг үндэслэн байгуулсан алдартай удирдагч нар Че Гевара, Фидель Кастро, Италийн алт дуучин Лучиано Павароти, Америкийн жүжигчд бол бас энэ навчин тамхиг нэлээд татаж байгаа байдлаар ахуулсан юм байна. За миний гарт байгаа энэ бол Кубын навчин тамхи хайрцагтайгаа энийг ингээд задлаад гаргаж ирээл татдаг юм байна. Би өөрөө тамхинаас арчсан тамхиг хайсан учраас бас татаж харуулсангүй. Ерөнхийдөө энэ навчин тамхины түүхээс нарах юм бол яг Кубын хөрсөнд, яг тэр арлын хөрсөнд ургадаг маш өвөрмөц үнэртэй учраас дэлхийд нэлээд алдартай байдаг гэж ярьж байна. Кубын навчин тамхи яагаад дэлхийд алдартай байдаг юм? Юугаараа энэ тамхиг их онцлог болгож байна?
Thank you again for your time and for your questions about Cuba and our traditions. Let me tell you that we are right now in the very special place here in Ulaanbaatar.
No.
This is an Habanos store here in Ulaanbaatar.
Habanos.
Habanos is the whole brand of the Cuban production of cigars. In 1492, when Cristobal Columbus discovered Cuba, the Spanish arrived, and we had a population around 400,000 Indians, Aboriginal people that were living in Cuba at that time. And the Spanish discovered that those Indians were smoking something, they were smoking, and they didn't understand why they did that, and then they realized that the acting of a smoke and a smoking cigar at that time was to raise the blood pressure, and also because it give you less hungry.
No.
So they took those cigars and they bring it to the Queen in Spain, and that's how the cigars started to become famous. The Cuban rum. Also, it's a very old tradition to make alcohol from the sugar cane. So remember when the Spanish discovered Cuba and when the Spanish discovered America, sugar was one of the products most needed at that time, and the whole production of sugar was made from the sugar cane. They started to produce alcohol, and with that alcohol they started to produce rum, which is an alcohol from the sugar cane that you put it in a barrel of oak, and then you age there for a little bit time, years, and then you have your Cuban rum.
Okay.
It's a very also famous product from Cuba, because we have been producing rum from many centuries ago too.
Messenger.
Yeah, it's a very good tradition from Cuba.
Yeah.
So I hope you try it, and I hope you like it when you try Cuban rum. Cigar industry is a very big industry in Cuba. It's hired many people in Cuba, and we have a very, very good tradition on rolling cigars, and the farmers also produce a lot of tons of cigars and plants, and it's a complete industry in Cuba that every year it's allowed to our country to earn very good profits from that industry, around 5 million. Last year was around 500 million US dollars. So it's a huge industry, and it's a festival of Habanos. It's always in February, and it's a good opportunity for all the smokers around the world to go to Cuba and to try the new brands, the new cigars, and the new things that the industry produce. Let me tell you one thing that is very interesting. In that festival, we auctions and humidors for those people that come in. It's like a part of the event. We are doing a very big auction of humidors and cigars, and the whole money that we are getting from that event is going directly to the healthcare system.
Healthcare system.
Yes. Later it's become a health system. This year, the profit of the actions of the cigars industry and the event of the festival, it was more than $1.2 million. And this money directly was, every year is directly going to the Minister of Health in Cuba to support the programs and to support the research and investigations in Cuba about different diseases. So it's a very noble and very good idea that was started by Fidel Castro and in 1980 when he took part of several of those festivals, and he was signing personal some of those humidors, and he was signing some of those cigar box for the people who was buying there at that time.
Ягаад Кубын ард түмэн коммунист дэглэм энэ тогтолцоонд их үнч байдгүй. Ялангуяа Кубын Фидель Кастро, Раул Кастро энэ өдөрдөгчдөд ягаад Кубын ард түмэн үнч дэглэмийн төлөө байдаг вэ гэсэн асуултыг танах асуухыг хүсэж байна.
we have been a struggle. I mean, the history of Cuba is more short than the Mongolian one. Maybe the Mongolian history have centuries and many years. Our history started 500 years ago only, when the Spaniards they killed all the Aboriginal people in Cuba, and then they brought almost 1 million African slaves from Africa to work there in the plantations in Cuba. And from that moment until the moment that they started our struggle against the Spaniards colonialism in Cuba, that was the moment when we started to conform our national identities. Who are the Cubans? Cubans are the mix from Spaniards, African, Asia people that came also to work in Cuba, and they established in Cuba. But after many centuries ago, when the Spaniards kingdom was taking our resources and enslaved our people, the people started to realize that we as a country have a nation. And that's why in 1868, October the 10th, we started our struggle against the Spaniards colonialism. That war ended after a period of the war with our victory in 19th century. And that was the moment when the Americans came to Cuba and they took our victory from the Cubans, real Cubans that were defeated the Spanish colonialists. So from that moment until 1959, we were a neo-colonial or United States. Always was the interest of the United States to take Cuba as a backyard for the empire. So if I tell you something, and that's the whole meaning of our conversation, why the people are so loyal to our revolution, it's because during that period we achieved a lot of poverty. Our people was lack of studies, lack of the health, and when the revolution triumphed, we were only 5 million, in which more than 4 million people was living under the line of poverty. We had nothing, and it was like 13 families in Cuba will own the whole land in Cuba, and the rest of the people were living like as a slave, and that's what the revolution brings to Cuban, the real power to command our will and to be sovereign from anyone, and especially from the United States, and that's why Fidel couldn't defeat an army of 20,000 army guys paid by United States and supported with guns and tanks and everything, with only 300 guerrilla men. So that's the story of the whole country supporting the idol of the one guy who was struggling for the liberation of the country. And it's very interesting. Why? Because Fidel brings to the Cuban people that bring education,
Health.
Bring honesty, bring health, bring rights to have, right to have the basic human rights in our country to the real people.
Өглөө 5 өнгөрөөгд явж хахад Фиделийн машин тавьдаг байхгүй. Өөрөө их тийм оюуны потенциал маш их одоо хөдөлмөрлөдөг оюуны потенциал өндөртэй л хөндлөлтэй. Тэгээд тэр 4, 5, 6 цагийн илтгэлийг бол ер нь ямар ч цаас харахгүйгээр, ямар ч одоо юу гэдгийг бэлтгэсэн зүйл харахгүйгээр одоо унших ийм бүрэн чадвартай. Тэгээд тэр чадвар нь бол үнэхээр бас одоо энэ дэлхийн удирдагч нарын нэг болгосон байх л гэж боддоо шүү дээ.